In this Monster Hunter Wilds video, we're going to be taking a look at Longsword skills. We did a video previously on the Longsword and its moveset and its changes, but in this video we're going to take a look at what are the best skills for the Longsword if you're using this weapon in Monster Hunter Wilds. There are a total of 148 skills in Monster Hunter Wilds, and each one has a unique effect, and each of them is helpful in a particular aspect when you're playing a game. A lot of these skills that were in previous games make a return, but there are some new added skills as well. In this video, we're going to be diving into those skills and picking out the best ones for Longsword users so that you can focus on these to get the most out of your hunts. The Longsword is a weapon that can deliver a series of quick attacks, and it functions around filling the spirit gauge and raising your spirit level to max level, turning it red. At this spirit gauge level, the Longsword becomes much more powerful and can deal devastating damage to the monster, and as such, the skills for the Longsword will center around maximizing the value of the red spirit gauge. The best possible skills you can have in your loadout when using the Longsword are Focus, Power Prolonger, Burst, Weakness Exploit, and Flare. Focus and Power Prolonger skills are equipment skills that can be found on the weapons, while Burst, Weakness Exploit, and Flare skills are equipment skills gained from using armor sets. The main reason for using the Focus skill is because this skill will boost the core mechanic of the Longsword, as it will increase the fill rate of the spirit gauge when you land your attacks. This will allow you to use spirit slashes faster and raise your spirit gauge level faster during your hunts. The Focus skill will add even more value to you if you find yourself using the added move for the Longsword, the Spirit Charge, often, as this skill will also reduce the charge time for your charge attacks, allowing them to go off much faster. The next important skill for the Longsword is the Power Prolonger skill. The Power Prolonger skill boosts the duration the Longsword will stay in its powered up states. This will give you more time to raise your spirit gauge for each individual lower level of white and yellow, and will allow you to stay longer in the red level before the spirit gauge levels fall down one level. This is especially helpful since the basic Crimson Slash combos and Crimson Spirit Slash combos you'll be using in the red spirit gauge level do not consume the spirit gauge, and the spirit gauge will reduce gradually over time. As you can also top up your spirit gauge during the red level by landing your Spirit Round Slash and spinning Crimson Slash, using the Power Prolonger skill in combination with this will enable you to stay in the powered red spirit gauge level for the longest possible duration during your hunts. Although none of the Longswords from the different trees will offer both Focus and Power Prolonger skills at the same time, you can choose between one of the two, and then you can use a decoration slot to use the other skill, making it possible to use both at the same time. If you're lucky with your decoration drops, you can slot in high-level Focus and Enhancer jewels within 3 decoration slots. The next skill that is really good when using the Longsword is the Burst skill. This skill will increase the attack of each successful strike you land after a small boost on the first hit, and even a larger boost after the 5th hit. This is amazing with the Longsword, as you'll be doing a series of consecutive quick slashes that can be chained rapidly with your Crimson Slash combo when you're in the red spirit level on the gauge. Next is the Weakness Exploit skill. This skill increases the affinity of attacks that hit weak points on a monster, and increases the damage by even more when you attack wounds that have been opened up. Since you'll be hitting the weak point of the monster when trying to cut the tail most of the time when using the Longsword, and you'll be creating wounds more often with your quick successful Crimson Slashes, this skill will increase your affinity quite considerably. And the last of the skills that work best for the Longsword is the Flare skill. This skill is amazing with the Longsword because it increases the chances of inflicting wounds on monsters during your hunt, and added to the already increased chances of Crimson Slashes, you can cover the monster in a lot of wounds, which you can then destroy all at once with a well-timed full-release slash, dealing massive amounts of damage. The reason why Weakness Exploit and the Flare skills are mentioned later after the Burst skill for this tier is because apart from the Chotacabra set, which offers 2 levels of the Weakness Exploit skill, they cannot be reliably obtained without using decoration, since they come with the Arkfeld armor pieces, which is one of the monsters you'll face at the end of the game at the time of release. Although you can get the Flare skill from the Ardean armor set, the materials needed to craft the armor pieces are of the higher rarity drops from the mining deposits and the bone pile, and can take some amount of time to farm to get the complete armor set. On the other hand, the Burst skill can be reliably put together using the Guardian Ebony armor set. So even though all 3 of these skills, Burst, Weakness Exploit, and Flare, work really well when using the Longsword, it can be a challenge to have all of them up at the same time, even when you're using charms from Talisman slot and the respective decorations. However, the ability to mix and match different combinations of armor pieces will allow you to emphasize whichever of these skills you prefer, using all the different slots and options available to you. The next set of skills are not the best skills for the Longsword, but they're the second best skills for the Longsword. So if you can't obtain all of the ones I just mentioned, then you want to be on the lookout for these. Critical Draw and Punishing Draw are equipment skills that are on the Longsword itself, and these skills will amplify your draw attacks and your EI slashes by increasing their affinity or stunning power respectively. Some Longswords will have one of these 2 draw skills as their main skill. If you find yourself using the EI slashes a lot, or you just like the playstyle, these skills are amazing to have. But the main reason why they are in the second tier and not the best tier is because they are situational and they will only be amplifying a specific portion of the longsword's moveset while leaving a large portion unaffected. You can use these as secondary skills in your decoration slots, or if you just like the look of the longsword with these skills, you can bolster it with the focus or enhancer jewels, or maybe both if you want to spread your power out across the whole moveset. Quick Sheath is a skill that you can find on armor that will complement critical draw and punishing draw. This skill will shorten the amount of time it takes for the longsword user to complete the special sheath action and be ready for the EI slashes, making the timing to land these attacks easier. The Adrenaline Rush skill will also come from armor pieces, and this skill will help the longsword user because it will activate with the counters from the Foresight slash and the EI slashes, giving you a temporary attack boost when it activates. The main reason why these armor skills are in the second best tier for the longsword is because they're situational and will affect only specific portions of the longsword's moveset rather than amplify the longsword as a whole. The Ebony Otegron's Power / Burst Boost is a set bonus skill that will activate if you have a set amount of the Guardian Ebony set equipped. Although this skill itself will further enhance the burst skill, which is one of the best skills for the longsword, because it increases its duration and attack power, it does require specific armor pieces to be equipped, which can lock you out of other armor pieces, which is why this is in the second tier of best skills rather than the first tier. And the last skills we'll be taking a look at for the longsword are optional skills. These are not quite as good as the previous two tiers of skills, but they're still not bad to have if you can't get any of the other ones. Other optional skills that are decent to have when you're using a longsword include the Critical Eye and Critical Boost skills. As these skills will increase the percentage and damage of your critical hits, they work well in tandem with the Weakness Exploit skill, increasing your damage even further. Another skill that's good to have on a decoration slot is the Protective Polish skill. This skill will prevent the reduction of your sharpness level after using the whetstone for a set amount of time depending on the level. If you have extra decoration slots that are open, you can use the Sharp Jewels for this skill. Other decoration-specific skills that can be used are the Handicraft skill and the Razor Sharp skill. The Handicraft skill will extend the weapon's sharpness gauge, although it will not extend beyond its maximum, and the Razor Sharp skill will have a set percentage of preventing your weapon from losing its sharpness with your attacks. Both of these skills can only be obtained via decoration slots, and although they are not a necessity, they will help when using the longsword, because you will wear down the sharpness fast with the quick successive slashes the longsword can do with its combos, and this will prevent you from having to sharpen as often. So that wraps up our video on the best skills for the longsword. I hope you guys got something out of this. Let me know if there are other skills out there that you're using on your longsword, why you're using them, and if there are skills that I forgot, please leave them in the comments below.